But I would say your character, your reputation, these are things that you can build.
但是我会说你的品格和声誉是你可以建立的东西。
That then will let you take out advantages of opportunities that other people may characterize as lucky.
然后将让你利用其他人可能认为是运气的机会。
But you know that it wasn't luck.
但你知道那不是运气。
You said that this fourth kind of luck is more or less a destiny.
你说过这第四种运气或多或少是一种命运。
There's a quote from that original book that was in Mark's blog post from Benjamin Disraeli.
这本书中有一句话，马克在他的博客文章中引用了本杰明·迪斯雷利的话
who I think was the former Prime Minister of the UK.
我认为他是前任英国首相。
The quote to describe this kind of luck was, "We make our fortunes, and we call them fate."
形容这种运气的名言是我们创造了自己的命运，然后称之为宿命。
There are a couple other interesting things about this kind of luck that were mentioned in the blog post.
有几件关于这种运气的有趣事情被提到了在部落格文章中。
I think it'll be good for the listeners to hear about is that this fourth kind of luck
我认为听众听到这第四种运气会觉得很好，
can almost come out of eccentric ways that you do your things and
几乎可以摆脱你做事的反常方式。
that eccentricity is not necessarily a bad thing in this case.
而那种反常是在这种情况下不一定是坏事。
In fact, it's a good thing. Yeah, absolutely.
事实上，这是一件好事，是的，绝对如此。
Because the world is a very efficient place.
因为这个世界是一个非常有效率的地方，
So everyone has dug through all the obvious places to dig.
所以每个人都已经挖过所有明显的地方了。
And so to find something that's new and novel and uncovered, it helps to be operating on.
要找到一些新颖且未被发现的事物，这有助于在前沿上运作。
A frontier where right there you have to be a little eccentric to be out on the frontier by yourself.
在那里，你必须有点反常，才能靠你自己在前沿上。
And then you just have to be willing to dig deeper than other people do.
然后你只需要愿意比其他人挖得更深，
Deeper than seems irrational just because you're interested.
比看起来不理性还要更深层，只是因为你真的感兴趣。
Yet the two quotes that I've seen that express this kind of luck in addition to that Benjamin.
好的，我见过的两个引用表达了这种运气，此外还有本杰明。
Disraeli one or this one from Sam Altman where he said extreme people get extreme results.
迪斯雷利有一句话是山姆·阿特曼引用的，他说极端的人会得到极端的成果。
I think that's pretty nice.
我觉得那很不错。
And then there's this other one from Jeffrey Pfeffer who is a professor at Stanford.
然后还有另一个来自史丹佛大学教授杰佛瑞·菲佛的，
That you can't be normal and expect abnormal returns.
你不能过着平凡的生活，却期待不平凡的回报。
I've always enjoyed that one too.
我也一直很喜欢那个。
And one quote that I like, which is the exact opposite of that, is play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
有一句我喜欢的话，意思正好相反，那就是玩愚蠢的游戏，赢愚蠢的奖品。
A lot of people spend a lot of their time playing social games like on Twitter where
许多人花费大量时间在玩社交游戏，例如在 Twitter 上。
you're just trying to improve your social standing and you basically win stupid social prizes which are worthless.
你只是在试图提高你的社会地位，而你基本上赢得了愚蠢的社会奖励，毫无价值。
I guess the last thing that I have from this blog post is just the idea that by pursuing
我想这篇博客文章最后要说的就是这个想法，通过追求
these kinds of luck, especially the last one, basically everything but dumb luck by pursuing
这些运气，特别是最后一种，基本上除了愚蠢的运气之外，都是通过追求而来的。
them you essentially run out of unluck.
你基本上用完了不幸运，
So if you just keep stirring the pot and stirring the pot, that alone you will run out of unluck.
所以如果你只是一直搅拌，不停地搅拌，光是这样你就会耗尽不幸运的机会。
Yeah, or it could just be a reversion to the mean, right?
是啊，或者这只是回归平均值，对吧？
So then you at least neutralize luck so that it's your own talents that come into play.
那么你至少可以综合运气，让你的才能发挥作用。
Next you go into more specific details on how you can actually get rich and how you can't get rich.
接下来你会更具体地说明你实际上如何致富，以及你如何无法致富。
The first point was about how you're not going to get rich.
第一点是关于你如何不会变得富有。
You're not going to get rich renting out your time.
你不会靠出租你的时间致富。
You must own equity, a piece of a business, to gain your financial freedom.
要获得财务自由，你必须拥有企业的一部分股权。
This is probably one of the absolute most important points.
这大概是绝对最重要的基点之一。
People seem to think that you can create wealth and make money through work, and it's probably not going to work.
人们似乎认为你可以通过工作创造财富和赚钱，不是这样的。
There are many reasons for that, but the most basic is just that your inputs are very closely tied to your outputs.
有很多原因，但最基本的原因是你的输入非常接近你的输出。
In almost any salaried job, even one that's paying a lot per hour, like a lawyer or a doctor,
在几乎任何有薪水的工作中，即使是像律师或医生这样每小时薪资很高的工作，
you're still putting in the hours, and every hour you get paid.
你仍然在投入时间，每小时都能获得报酬。
So what that means is when you're sleeping, you're not earning.
这意味着当你在睡觉时，你就无法赚钱；
When you're retired, you're not earning.
当你退休时，你就没有收入了；
When you're on vacation, you're not earning.
当你在度假的时候，你就没有在赚钱。
You're not earning when you're on vacation, you're not earning, and you can't earn non-linearly.
当你在度假时，你没有在赚钱，而且你无法非线性的赚钱。
If you look at even doctors who get rich, like really rich,
如果你看看那些致富的医生真正富有的原因，
it's because they open a business, they open like a private practice, and that private practice builds a brand.
是因为他们开设了他们像私人诊所一样开展业务，而那家私人诊所则建立了一个品牌。
And that brand attracts people, or they build some kind of a medical device or a procedure.
而且那个品牌吸引人们，或者他们制造某种医疗设备或程序，
Or a process where they have intellectual property.
或他们拥有智慧财产权的过程。
So essentially you're working for somebody else, and that person is taking on the risk.
所以基本上你是在为别人工作，而那个人正在承担风险，
And has the accountability and the intellectual property and the brand.
并拥有责任、知识产权和品牌。
So they're just not going to pay you enough, they're going to pay you the bare minimum.
所以他们不会给你足够的报酬，他们只会给你最低限度的薪水。
That they have to get you to do the job.
他们必须让你去做这份工作。
And that can be a high bare minimum, but it's still not going to be true wealth where you're retired.
这可能是一个很高的最低标准，但它仍然不会是真正的财富以致退休。
And then finally you're actually just not even creating that much original for society.
最后，你实际上并没有为社会创造出多少原创的东西。
Like I said, this tweet storm should have been called How to Create Wealth.
就像我说的，这个推文串应该叫做如何创造财富。
It's just How to Get Rich was a more catchy title.
只是如何变有钱是一个更吸引人的标题。
But you're not creating new things for society, you're just doing things over and over.
但是你并没有为社会创造新的事物，你只是在一遍又一遍地重复做同样的事情。
And you're essentially replaceable because you're now doing a set role. Most set roles can be taught.
而且你基本上是可以被取代的，因为你现在在做一个固定的角色，大多数的固定角色可以被教导。
If they can be taught like in a school, then eventually you'll be competing with someone.
如果他们能像在学校里那样被教导，那么最终你将与某人竞争。
Who's got more recent knowledge, who's been taught, and is coming in to replace you.
谁拥有更近期的知识，谁已经接受过训练，并即将来取代你。
You're much more likely to be doing a job that can be eventually replaced by a robot or by an AI.
你很有可能正在从事一份最终会被机器人取代的工作，或有人工智慧。
And it doesn't have to be wholesale replaced overnight, it can be replaced a little bit at a time.
而且不必一夜之间全部更换，可以逐步替换一段时间。
And that eats into your wealth creation and therefore your earning capability.
这会侵蚀你的财富创造，从而影响你的赚钱能力。
So fundamentally your inputs are matched to your outputs, you're replaceable.
所以从根本上来说，你的输入与输出是匹配的，你是可替代的，
And you're not being creative.
而且你缺乏创造力。
I just don't think that that is a way that you can truly make money.
我只是不认为那是你能真正赚钱的方法。
So everybody who really makes money at some point owns a piece of a product or a business.
所以每一个真正赚钱的人在某个时候都拥有一部分产品或企业，
or some kind of IP that can be through stock options.
或某种可以通过股票期权获得的知识产权。
So if you can be working at a tech company, that's a fine way to start.
所以，如果你能在一家科技公司工作，那是一个不错的开始。
But usually the real wealth is created by starting your own companies or by
但通常真正的财富是通过创办自己的公司或你知道的方式创造出来的。
Even investors they're in an investment firm and they're buying equity.
即使是投资者，他们在一家投资公司工作，并且他们正在购买股票。
So these are much more the routes to wealth. It doesn't come to the hours you really just.
所以这些才是真正致富的途径，并不是靠工时，你真的只需要
Want a job or a career or a profession where your inputs don't match your outputs.
想要一份工作、职业或专业，让你的投入与产出不匹配。
So if you look at modern society again, this is later in the tweet storm businesses that.
所以，如果你再看看现代社会，这是在连环推文的后起企业们
have high creativity and high leverage tend to be ones where you could do an hour of work.
具有高度创造力和高杠杆的工作，往往是那些你可以在1小时内完成的工作。
And it can have a huge effect, or you can do 1,000 hours of work and it can have no effect.
而且它可能会产生巨大的影响，或者你可以做1000小时的工作，但它可能没有任何效果。
For example, look at software engineering.
例如，看看软体工程。
One great engineer can, for example, create Bitcoin and create billions of dollars worth of value.
一位伟大的工程师可以，例如创造比特币，并创造价值数十亿美元的财富价值。
An engineer who's working on the wrong thing or not quite as good or just not as creative.
一个工程师在做错误的方向，或者不太好，或者只是缺乏创意。
Or thoughtful or whatever can work for an entire year and every piece of code they ship.
或深思熟虑，或其他任何方式都能工作整整1年，但他们的每一行代码
Ends up not getting used. Customers don't want it.
最终没有被使用，顾客不想要它。
That is an example of a profession where the input and the outputs are highly disconnected.
那是一个输入和输出高度脱节的职业范例。
It's not based on the number of hours that you put in, whereas on the extreme other end,
这并不是根据你投入的时间来决定的，而是在另一个极端。
if you're a lumberjack, even the best lumberjack in the world, assuming they're not working,
如果你是伐木工人，即使是世界上最好的伐木工人，假设他们没有
with tools, the inputs and outputs are fairly connected. They're just using an axe or a saw.
使用工具时，输入和输出是相当连接的，他们只是使用斧头或锯子。
The best lumberjack in the world may be like 3x better than one of the worst lumberjacks.
世界上最好的伐木工人可能比最差的伐木工人好3倍，
It's not going to be a gigantic difference.
这不会有巨大的差别。
So you want to look for professions and careers where the inputs and the outputs are highly disconnected.
所以你想寻找投入和产出高度脱节的职业和事业。好的脱节，
This is another way of saying that you want to look for things that are leveraged and,
这是另一种说法，表示你想寻找那些被利用的事物。
by leveraged I don't mean financial leverage alone like Wall Street uses, and that has
我所说的杠杆不仅仅是像华尔街使用的财务杠杆，
a bad name.
坏名声。
In just talking about tools, we're using tools.
我只是在谈论工具，我们正在使用工具。
Software is a tool that software engineers use.
软体是软体工程师使用的工具。
If I'm a lumberjack with bulldozers and automatic robot axes and saws, I'm going to be using
如果我是个拥有推土机和自动机器人斧头及锯子的伐木工人，我将会使用
tools and have more leverage than someone who's just using his bare hands and trying
工具，比起只用徒手尝试的人有更多的杠杆作用，
to rip the trees out by their roots.
将树木连根拔起。
Tools and leverage are what create this disconnection between inputs and outputs.
工具和杠杆是造成输入与输出之间脱节的原因。
Creativity, so the higher the creativity component of a profession, the more likely it is to
创造力，因此一个职业的创造力成分越高，它就越有可能
have disconnected inputs and outputs.
以断开输入和输出的简单关系。
So I think that if you're looking at professions where your inputs and your outputs are highly
所以，我认为，如果你在考虑那些投入和产出高度相关的职业，
connected, it's going to be very, very, very hard to create wealth and make wealth for
创造财富和赚取财富将会变得非常非常非常困难。
yourself in that process.
在那个过程中，
Any other big things you should avoid other than renting out your time?
除了出租你的时间之外，还有其他应该避免的大事吗？
Yeah, there are 2 tweets that I put out that are related.
是的，我发了2条相关的推文。
So the first one was talking about how your lifestyle has to upgrade, shouldn't get upgraded too fast.
所以第一个是在说你的生活方式必须升级，而不是应该被加速升级。
And that one said people who are living far below their means enjoy a freedom that people
那个人说，生活远低于自己经济能力的人享有一种自由，
busy upgrading their lifestyle just can't fathom.
是其他忙于提升他们的生活方式的人无法理解的。
And I think that's very important, just to not upgrade your lifestyle all the time too.
我认为这非常重要，不要一直提升你的生活方式，
Maintain your freedom.
保持你的自由，
And it just gives you a freedom of operation.
而且它给你操作的自由。
Once you make a little bit of money, you still want to be living like your old self so that
一旦你赚了一点钱，你仍然想过着像以前一样的生活，以至于
just the worry goes away.
只有担忧消失了。
So don't run out to upgrade that house and lifestyle and all that stuff.
所以不要急着去升级房子、生活方式和所有那些东西。
Let's say you're going to pay $1.000 an hour.
假设你要支付每小时1000美元，
The problem is that when you go into a work lifestyle like that, you don't just suddenly
问题在于当你进入那样的工作生活方式时，你不会突然间就
go from making $20 an hour to making $1,000 an hour.
从每小时赚20美元到每小时赚1000美元。
That's a progression over a long career.
那是一个漫长职业生涯中的进步。
And as that happens, one subtle problem is that you upgrade your lifestyle.
随着这种情况的发生，一个微妙的问题是你也在提升你的生活方式。
As you make more and more money,
随着你赚钱越来越多的钱，
and that upgrading of the lifestyle ups what you consider to be wealth, and you stay in
那种生活方式的提升会提高你对财富的认知，并且你会保持在
this wage slave trap.
这个新奴陷阱。
So I forget who said it, maybe it was Nassim Taleb, but he said, you know.
所以我忘记是谁说的了，也许是纳西姆·塔勒布，但他说你知道，
The most dangerous things are heroin and a monthly,
最危险的洛因、海洛因与月薪，
because they're highly addictive.
因为它们极具成瘾性。
The way you want to get wealthy is you want to be poor and working and working and working.
你想要致富的方式是你想要贫穷，并且不停地工作、工作、再工作。
And this is, for example, how the tech industry works, where you don't make any money for 10 years.
这就是科技行业的运作方式。例如，你不赚钱的情况10年，
And then suddenly in year 11 you might have a giant payday.
然后突然在第11年，你可能会有一笔绝收入。
Which is, by the way, one reason why these very high marginal tax rates for the so-called wealthy are flawed.
顺便说一句，这是这些所谓富人的高边际税率有缺陷的原因。
Because the highest risk-taking, most creative professions literally lose money for a decade.
因为风险最高且最具创意的职业在10年间实际上会亏钱。
Of your life while you take massive risk and you bleed and bleed and bleed.
在你的人生中，当你承担巨大的风险时，你会不断的流血、流血、再流血。
And then suddenly in year 11 or year 15 you might have one single big payday.
然后突然在第11年或第15年，你可能会有一次巨大的收入。
But then of course Uncle Sam show up and say, hey, you know what, you just made a lot of money this year.
但是当然，山姆大叔出现了，说：“嘿，你知道吗？你刚刚赚了很多钱，今年的钱。
Therefore you're rich.
因此你很有钱，
Therefore you're evil.
因此你是邪恶的。
And you've got to hand it all over to us.
你必须把这一切都交给我们。
So it just destroys those kinds of creative risk-taking professions.
所以这就摧毁了那些需要创意冒险的职业。
But ideally you want to make your money in discrete lumps separated over long periods of time.
但理想情况下，你希望在长时间内分散地赚取一笔笔的钱，
So that your own lifestyle does not have a chance to adapt quickly.
以至于你的生活方式没有机会迅速适应。
And then you can say, okay, now I'm done.
然后你可以说好，我完成了，
Now I'm retired.
现在我退休了。